on, everybody? Welcome to the Dating is Hard podcast. I am your host, Joe Welkie. For everything you need to know about this show, head over to datingishardcomedy.com. Follow the Instagram at datingishardcomedy. You can follow me on Instagram at Joe Welkie. If you could please subscribe, like, rate, and review. Do this podcast of solid. Leave it a 5-star rating. And if you got some extra time, please write a nice review. That'd be freaking awesome. I'd love that. If you want to contact the show, you can email datingishardcomedy@gmail.com, or you can just go to the website. There is a contact portion of that site. And yeah, if you want to get in touch, ask some questions, whatever you need to do. So the general purpose of this show is that I am talking to people that I've met through dating apps, but today we got a little bit of a different thing going on. I've got a good buddy of mine coming on the show, a hilarious comedian. He's got a new album coming out on August 14th, so be sure to check that out. It's called Good Guy with a Gun. So hope you guys enjoy my chat with Jay Light. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dating is Hard podcast. I'm your host, Joe Welkie, and today I'm with an absolutely hilarious comedian, a good buddy, and he's got a comedy album coming out soon. Everybody welcome Jay Light. Jay, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
You want to talk about your album a little bit?
Yeah,
go for it,
so it's called Good Guy with a Gun. It is an album... Right? See, great name right off the bat, right from the jump. I went through like 15 iterations of that name, pitching them to my girlfriend, and then like all of my ideas were dog shit, and then that one she laughed at, and I was like, cool, that's the one, because she can be a tough audience member. Yeah. So if I get her to laugh, I'm like, oh sweet, I got this.
Well, if you... I don't know, like, you have a bit in your act about a good guy with a gun, I'm guessing.
I have a bit about owning a gun.
Oh, nice.
And it's like a gun control bit that takes up, the bit itself is long. It takes up like 3 tracks on the album.
Shit.
But I did it, and I don't actually ever say the words good guy with a gun on the album, but the whole idea of like good guy with a gun it's just like a funny, stupid idea to me.
Yeah.
Is like, that's the thing that everybody who is real hardcore, like anti-gun control, pro Second Amendment people are like, it's take a good guy with a gun. But the premise of the bit is essentially like, would you want somebody like me looking like this owning a gun?
Yeah. You just like whip it out and like fumble it and end up shooting an old lady or something.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm a good guy, but I also have a gun.
Yeah.
And that's not great. But I was like, this is a very funny album title also. So it's stand-up and sketches and a roast battle all intermingled. I got the wonderful DJ Coach T, who DJs Roast Battle.
Nice.
Has produced some other great comedy albums to produce this. And he works magic, and it all sounds great. I'm really happy with the results.
Dope. So, yeah. Everybody check that album out. It's going to be fucking dope.
Yeah.
Jay's hilarious.
Releases August 14th.
August 14th. Boom, baby. And you also have your own podcast as well.
Yeah, Blockbusting.
Yes.
Talk about movies you hate and why you hate them.
Yeah. Would you have a movie that you hate and that people were like, just like, I don't know why?
The movie that I hate the most, the one that even got me the idea to do the podcast, is Lawrence of Arabia.
You hate it?
Yeah. I watched it. I went to film school, and I had a class where it was a cinematography-centric class, and so we watched a lot of movies that our professor had picked that were specific. Like, we were watching for design and lighting and camera work specifically, and he loved Lawrence of Arabia because it's this outdoor movie shot in the desert. All the camera shots, there's action scenes, and there's long shots, all these different things. And everybody was always talking about, like, we had the book for the class. It said stuff like, "Oh, this is an all-time classic. Yeah. It's got the best cut in cinema history, where it cuts between him blowing out a match and then the sun rising in the desert." And we all watched it, and we all hated it. So we were like, this movie is slow the acting is not great.
Yeah.
Why does this movie get the accolades that it does? And our professor the next day in class is like, "What's wrong with you guys? Why do you hate this movie?" And so I was thinking about that and thinking about, I like movies a lot. I love them, and I thought that it's funny to talk about, there's a ton of bad movie podcasts out there. Those are a dime a dozen, but it's funnier, I think, to talk about, like, why you in particular don't like a movie.
A great movie.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a great movie necessarily. I've got a lot of people on there where we talk about movies that are, objectively bad movies. But I think it's all about your own opinion. And I think that that's the most interesting thing to me about the show.
Hell yeah.
That's why I like it so much.
All right, check out Blockbusting as well.
Thanks. Yes, please
podcast.
do.
I try to get the plugs out in first because,
Smart.
Yeah, I don't want people to go through it and then like, all right, this is the end of it. Let's hear your plugs.
I'm bailing. I'm out.
But all right, so the general premise of this podcast is I talk to people that I've met through dating apps that I've never met before. And I have no idea who they are or what their stories are. I'll just have profiles on dating apps.
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, I have a podcast. You come on, you talk about your experiences with dating.
Okay.
And the only thing that happens before it is I'll meet them for a coffee, number one, to prove I'm not a murderer and to prove that they're not going to murder me because I record in my apartment.
Right.
So dangerous for people to just come, be like, hey, come straight to my apartment.
Yeah, it's risky all around.
Yeah. So that's the general premise of this podcast. But since I already know you, it's I like to have some buddies on too, and also wanted to promote the album that you got
very
coming
much
out.
Appreciate,
Dude. Of course, man.
Very nice.
Huge fan of your fucking comedy, man.
Thanks, dude.
But with that said, we're now going to get into the dating shit.
Let's get into the dating shit, dude.
Have you ever used a dating app before?
Yes. As soon as I moved to Los Angeles, that's when I started using dating apps.
Do you remember which one you got on first?
Tinder was the first one.
Hell yeah.
That was, I think, the only one in the game at the time.
Well, how long have you been in LA?
I've been in LA since 2012.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty...
Yeah. It might have been OkCupid also.
Yeah, OkCupid, I don't know if that was an app at that point, but it was definitely a website by then. Because, I was on OkCupid's website, I think 2011.
Yeah. Because I remember even back then, you had, I think it was Match and eHarmony, and you saw those and you're like, oh, these are for old people.
Yeah.
We don't need this. And OkCupid, I remember existing, but I just, I was in college right before then. In college, at the time, you didn't really need dating apps. I guess college students have dating apps now, which seems weird.
Yeah, because college is all about, you're in a community of people your age that are horny as fuck. You don't need a dating app per se.
Right.
But if you're, looking outside of your college, if you're into, older people or whatever, you're just oh, I hate this campus life. It would be a good opening for people. Or if you're just, shy.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I only got them right after I graduated college.
Yeah, same.
So your first experiences were with Tinder out here.
Yes.
Did you ever do any other ones?
I did. Oh God, I did. Yeah, Tinder and Bumble.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. I tried OkCupid for a little bit when it was an app, and didn't really do a whole lot. I ran into somebody who I worked with on the app. And, I mean, when you're on a dating app in L.A., as comics, I'm sure you've run into other comics in the dating apps.
Oh, yeah.
It's what happens. But I'm not talking that. I'm talking somebody who I worked with at a comedy club who wasn't a person, and I swiped right on them, and then I never got a thing back, and I was like, uh-oh. I need to get off this app.
Yeah, dude. Those are the worst, is when it's you see it's someone that you know, and you're like, let me just try it, and you never hear from them again.
Right.
I was talking about this the other day with somebody where, if it's someone that you know in person, I feel like that would have come up at a certain point that, that you're interested in them or they're interested in you. Mm-hmm. And if you're, waiting to rely on a dating app for that, spark to happen, I don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing that weirded me out. Tinder is one thing, right? Because Tinder seems like kind of a free-for-all, even more so now than it did back when I was still using it. But Bumble, I would match with girls who I knew, and because the whole thing of Bumble, right, is the whole connection point is once you connect, okay, the woman has to initiate what's going on.
Yeah.
So then I match with a girl who I know, who I like, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's see where this goes. And I'm not necessarily in it for the dating, like long term when I'm using these dating apps, right? But I'm just like, yeah, maybe we'll see what happens. And then never initiates. I feel weird, like I can't reach out on, I can't DM you
Like,
and be
what the
like,
fuck?
yo, what's the fucking deal? You let the thing lapse. It's been 24 hours. What's your fucking problem? Why would you And it's like, okay, I don't want to turn into that also.
Yeah.
Like that kind of, to me, is sort of defeating the purpose of why I got on dating apps in the first place. To not go and hunt down like, oh, well, this is the thing. Like, I've never been a sliding into DMs kind of a dude.
I don't even know how to get into a DM without coming across like a dickhead.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's a very complicated game that I just haven't mastered of sliding into DMs. Like I've never been successful with it.
I think it's a different approach to what the same kind of way that dating apps kind of work. I think because like Tinder, I'm not sure how you use apps, but what I know a lot of friends of mine do is you just kind of are swiping until something happens, and then you strike a conversation. Sliding into DMs kind of feels like the same thing, but just a little bit more pointed, where instead of like swiping constantly, you're going through and picking out people from a list, and then sliding in with probably the same opening line.
Yeah, sliding into DMs is different though too, because when you're swiping on an app, you have to match with that person or to message them first, so you know that there's some kind of attraction.
Right.
Whereas like just sliding into a DM, it's
so much more intrusive.
Yeah, dude, it's so intrusive and it's so risky. Of like, oh fuck it, I'll just roll the dice and slide into this DM. It's I don't know. It's like the cold open in person, like just going up to somebody that you were like, oh, you're hot, let me just come up and talk to you, and doing it on Instagram, man. The advice that I got from somebody that I talked about this to on this podcast before was like, just react to their story and see if you can get a conversation going there. I don't know about that.
I mean, that seems like it's a better idea if it's somebody you follow.
I remember seeing a bunch of people that were like, follow me, just DM me on Instagram on dating apps. And I was like, that's never going to be a thing. But I tried it a couple times and it never worked.
Yeah. I had somebody, a friend of mine who used to have this very specific method that he told me about when he was on dating apps. I don't know if he still uses this method. I imagine maybe he does. He would swipe right and match with girls and then find them on Instagram, because I think this must have been like right after Tinder had opened up Instagram as part of the profile.
Yeah.
So he'd go to their profile, follow them on Instagram, and then like 3 of their photos.
Okay.
And he was very specific about like and follow and then like 3 photos, because then they would if they followed him back after that, he was like, I got it, I know I'm in. I was like, this just seems, I mean,
that's so much.
You figured out a game, but that's so much work.
Did it work for him?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's the thing, it's a method. I don't have the energy to like develop a method like that.
Yeah. That's really intense, and that it, like you're saying with the DMs, like that's invasive. I feel like but if someone's promoting their Instagram on Tinder, I could see how like they're wanting you to go to the profile or at least check it out, and then if you follow and then like the pictures, I don't know. It's
such a specific level of like flowchartiness.
Yeah.
That it seems, it's very researched, obviously, right? Like he's done a lot of beta testing to work out the bugs in his plan.
And he's specific to be like, it's only
3. Never 5, never 1. If it's 1, you're not interested enough. If it's 5, you're too interested. 3, that's the magic number. It's like they say in Schoolhouse Rock. Okay, you only do 3.
I've never heard of anyone doing that Like, I would go on people's, like, Instagrams just to look and make sure that they look how they look and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never... Oh, that's so specific. That's... Everybody listening, try that out. Because that needs to be tried out. I need this to be, like, a thing.
Yeah. It was the method. I only heard 2 comics describe their methods to me. That was one of them. The other method that I actually followed for a little bit
All right.
was... I feel like he would be okay with me saying his name and talking about it because he did jokes about it on stage.
Uh-huh.
So Steven Randolph.
Okay.
He would tell me, he's like, you gotta you message people and you just send the donut and airplane emoji over and over and over and over again as like your opening line. So send it like a bunch of different repeated versions of that, and because you can read it in a dirty way, but you can also read it in a way where it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's just a weird icebreaker.
Huh.
And I was like, that sounds weird enough to actually work. So I did that, and that worked like gangbusters.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
I would have never assumed that would work.
Oh, I spread that around to everybody. All of my friends who are on dating apps was like, this works like crazy. And apparently now it doesn't work anymore. I've had friends who have since told me.
I feel like if like 30 comics are doing it to every woman that they're like, what is
probably.
this?
I think it only worked well when it was like a handful of people doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and because then that could be like the girls if they did get it from like Steven and then you.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what is this? Is this a thing that I don't know about?
Yeah.
Donuts
kind of code?
and planes. I would think that the Instagram thing would work more than that.
Yeah, but I don't forget that's the effort thing coming back.
Yeah, and it is kind of like stalkery
Mm-hmm.
to be like, yeah, I found your Instagram or whatever.
Right.
But the plane and donuts, that's like if you've already matched, then you have that in your arsenal.
Yeah.
Huh.
But I mean, I'm off the dating apps grid, so I don't even know what does or doesn't work anymore.
How long have you been off?
3 years.
Is that how long you've been dating your girlfriend? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. How did you guys meet?
We met on Bumble.
There you fucking success story.
Bumble was the plan, man.
Nice.
That was the one. Once I stopped, so my time in Los Angeles, I have been, when I first moved to LA, I was in a relationship.
Mm.
Then that relationship ended. I got on Tinder, and I was using Tinder to pretty good success. And then I met girls. I was working at the Comedy Store, and I started meeting girls in person and on Tinder a little bit. But I stopped using Tinder for a while just because I was like, this is too much. I'm meeting girls in person here working at the Comedy Store anyway.
Yeah.
I don't need to use an app. And then I got into this sort of jag of dating like a girl for a couple of months at a time, and then things would end.
Yeah.
And I went through doing that for, I guess, like a year, maybe. And then I was on the apps again for a little bit, and then that didn't work. And then I started dating somebody for like a full year. And then that didn't work out. And then I got on Bumble, and I was on Bumble being very upfront with people who I matched with that I just was not interested in being in a relationship. And that was very effective because I felt better about it on Tinder because I was like, I have no idea how to start conversations on Tinder anymore.
Yeah.
Because I just reverted to the donut airplane method over and over again. And I was like, well, I don't know how to actually open a conversation on Tinder anymore. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And then I also started matching with a lot of bots on Tinder. I was like, this seems like a dumpster fire of an app. I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah.
So then Bumble, I was like, this is nice because if a girl likes me, she will swipe right. And then we can actually have a conversation off of that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's cool. And then I'll just make sure that I am upfront and saying, hey, I'm not interested in a relationship, but if you want to like hang out, casual, hook up, whatever the way you want to say it, so that way we're on the same page, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
And that was fun. I had a good time doing that. But then I met my current girlfriend on the app, and she fell for me and was like, hey, I'm starting to like really develop feelings for you, because we were hanging out a lot. Like, out of all the girls who I was dating at the time, she was the one who we were definitely hanging out the most and talking the most.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm starting to develop feelings. I think that if you're going to keep dating other girls, then I should bail before I get hurt. And I was like, okay, I totally understand. That's probably a very good idea.
Yeah.
And then like 2 weeks later, she hit me up. I had done a roast battle that night, and she watched it on Periscope, and she texted me out of the blue, and I was like, oh, I miss her.
Yeah.
I miss hanging out with her and like being around. And then the next night we reconciled and like made up, and then we have been dating ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's how, yeah, it's interesting that you said that, like, you were upfront about, you know, you not wanting to be in a relationship. Because a lot of the people that I have on here, their thing is, like, everybody should just be upfront about their intentions, which is super important, obviously.
Right.
Because you don't want to, like, lie to people or lead them on and everything.
Right.
But I was always curious to, like, make a profile and be like, I'm not here for a relationship. Like, I'm just here to, like, hook up or like whatever. And I was always wondering if that would like work, and you are proof.
Yeah, I think it really is. It's so simple to do, to just say, I'm gonna be straight up with you, I'm not interested in a relationship.
Would that be like your first message to the person?
No, we'd like, as long as we would vibe,
Yeah.
I would say like, hey, just so you know, like, this is where I'm at, but I'm down to hang out. And we would usually at that point we'd like, you know, exchange numbers and like go grab a coffee or take a walk, something like that.
Yeah.
And then if it didn't continue to pan out after that, then yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Or if it did for a little bit, it's cool. Also fun times. But it took me a while to figure out that that was actually the thing. And maybe not even to figure out is the right word. I think the better way to put it, actually, the more accurate way, is that I had to work up the courage to do that.
Yeah.
Because that is a scary thing to do if you're not used to being somebody who's upfront about your feelings and where you are at mentally. It's very difficult, especially when it comes to dating, because like I spent my whole, you know, I've always been a monogamous relationship person. Like I've been in, at this point, like 4 really actually like multi-year relationships.
Yeah.
And before that, I did, you know, I was saying dating the same girl exclusively for like a couple months at a time, then we'd break up. But I was always afraid to say in some of those times how I felt, or say things like, this, I don't see this going anywhere, or I'm not interested in like being like dating you long term. And then I would act in a way that would basically like my version of trying to drive them away, which is shitty. I shouldn't do that. But it took me a really long time to figure out how to address how I felt and express that in a way that didn't lead to causing harm down the line. Because clamming up about it and just trying to be like the good guy who's not gonna fuck around or whatever, that's not good either. Like you can still be a decent human being and also not be interested in being in a romantic relationship with somebody. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people who that is their goal. It's not permanent, but it could be for a period in your life. It's totally fine to do that. But you have to go around doing that in a way that doesn't cause harm to people.
Yeah. I think that a lot of, like, what you're saying, like, it takes confidence to do that. Because I feel like a lot of dudes, they think that women only want to be in relationships. And, like, a lot of times if you're reading dating app profiles, it's like, not here to hook up, I'm only here for relationships. Like, that can lead you to believe, like, all right, well, I need to put up this front that I need to be in a relationship, and that's just completely dishonest.
Right.
And then you're ending up, like, hurting people, and then you get yourself into a situation where you're, like, lying and you don't really like this person.
Yeah.
And it just ends up being shitty. So getting the confidence to tell people, like, hey, I'm sure that, like, when you said, like, hey, just so you know, I'm not really looking for a relationship, I'm sure that you got a lot of people that were like, well, then I'm not interested in dating. Yeah.
Totally.
And that's fine. Like, I think people need to be more comfortable with getting that, like, well, then I'm not into that. And I think that I don't know. I think comics are a lot more used to that because we just bomb all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
But because we're just throwing it out on stage constantly anyway. We're just like trying so hard and then we fail. But you have to build up the shell of failure in order to have the confidence to just say what you want.
Yeah. Now, in your previous like years-long relationships before you met this girl, did they start out as like friends with benefit type of things too, or is it just like, hey, I like you, let's go out on a date, and then it blossomed?
Always the hey, I like you situation. One of them, my first one was in high school. We got together my junior year, and then we dated for like 2.5 years. We dated into my freshman year, or both of our freshman years of college, and then we tried doing long distance, and long distance just you can't do it.
Yeah,
it's just not, unless you have like unless you're a very particularly good at communicating, and you can make it work to see each other every so often. Long distance is not good. And especially not when you're like both 18 years old, both like in college around a bunch of other people for the first time. It's just not it's not gonna work. It's bad. It's a bad idea. If you have any listeners who are like about to go to I mean, not now, obviously. Like everybody's gonna be. This is honestly the best time to like be in a high school relationship where you're both graduating. Like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna go off to college. Guess what? You're not going off to college anymore. It's distance learning. You can go hang out. You can do your classes from Alabama and from Arizona, and then come meet in the middle, wherever you are. But yeah, that lasted, and that ended for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
College, my senior year, I started dating a girl who I saw her. We'd had a class before, and I was like, "Oh, we never talked in the class." But then I met her. I think it was probably at a party, maybe, and someone introduced us, and then we hit it off. And we started dating for like 2.5 years, I think, because of that. There was some long distance in there too. She moved to LA, but like the relationship had basically collapsed when we were both here in LA. And then the last long-term relationship, the one that was lasting a year, that same deal. It was like, hey, I think you're cute. Let's exchange numbers. Somebody in person.
Yeah.
And those have always been the ones that were the most successful and led me to be skeptical of dating apps as a place where you could actually find somebody who you'd want to date for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I always found that, like, a lot of my, like, because I was in a 2.5-year-long relationship from Tinder, that I met the girl from Tinder. And I just always felt like I guess the quality of person that I date was better if I had met them in person, because that person like knows your personality. They have mutual friends with you. Like if you're, I don't know, like if you met like at a comedy show or whatever, they already know who you are and like what you do. And and the infinite options of dating apps, I feel like, is a big problem. Like you're out there trying to differentiate yourself in this like gigantic sea of people, whereas I feel like it's easier to differentiate yourself in person than on a dating app. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it is easier to differentiate yourself in person. But here's the interesting thing that I experienced with the lead up to my to my current relationship.
Yeah.
So at the time that, literally like the day before my current girlfriend and I like agreed to cut the shit and just get together.
Yeah.
I was seeing a couple of different girls. I had met one of them through Bumble. I had met one of them in person, and I was just like, I was honestly, they were so attractive that I was like, I'm not even going to attempt to like give you ask you for your phone number. And then she slid into my DMs, and I was like, oh, okay, let's see where this goes. And then there was another girl who I had met at a comedy show, and so it's different variations of like, one of them we'd gone out on a couple dates, one of them we met in person, the other one we met in person. And you find out, or I found out rather, through hanging out with all these people in person, at least a couple of times, that they all had insecurities that like, or human insecurities. Like, you're going to see that no matter what, I think.
Yeah.
Dating apps just open you up to a wider pool than being in person necessarily is now. I think LA is a really isolating city, because even in your friend groups, you're sort of hanging out in very small clusters. Like, even in comedy, right? Comedy is a very cliquey thing.
Yeah.
And so you're not really branching out. Of course, you know, comics dating each other happens all the time, but that doesn't make it the best pool to pull from, right? And I don't have a lot of friends who aren't comics, so I'm not meeting new women from these friends.
Yeah.
So when I found somebody who, like, was in contrast to these other women who I was dating, as someone who is like, yeah, they have, you know, everybody's got flaws, right? But their flaws were like, I at least am somebody who sees, like, a compatibility in a way of, like, the way we would communicate and the kinds of things that we liked, where it made sense to take the shot and be like, I would rather continually date this person and be monogamous with this person than be in a position where I'm trying to, like, sift my way and date multiple women who are not really giving me the same kind of emotional fulfillment that one person is giving me.
Yeah.
And that was a really weird thing to accept, because I was so ready, and just, like, at that point I was like, oh, I'm going to be, like, slinging dick all around town. This is going to be a ton of fun. I'm here. I'm ready to be single. And then all of a sudden, whenever you don't expect it, right? And I met somebody who was like, oh, I'm actually would rather be emotionally fulfilled. I love the stability. Oh, God. What have I done? Have I been lying to myself this whole time? But whatever. It's stuff, you figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, and also, because I've gotten into the thing of, like, where I've, at certain points in my life, been, like, seeing multiple people at the same time. And it's just, like, it's so much effort.
Oh, so much effort.
So much energy.
It's so chaotic.
Yeah, dude, it's rough.
And it's expensive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, I'll complain about that to some people, and they'll be like, oh, poor Joe, you're, like, seeing multiple women at the same time. It must be so fucking hard.
Oh, my
dude,
God,
it's
dude.
hard.
This is to tie back more to the night before. I was dating, I think at that point it was like 5. There were 3 girls who I was, like, actively talking to, and then there were 2 other girls who I had, like, not met in person, but I was, like, messaging a lot back and forth. And oh no, it was 4 girls and then 1 who I was messaging. And those 4 girls who I had been, like, seeing in person at least a little bit all came to the roast battle that night.
Oh, no.
And I had to... I lived a fucking, like British sitcom episode where I'm just making sure that, like, one person's talking to... I'm, like, introducing someone to talk to them so I could run interference and be like, I have to get you out of here.
Yep.
And it was too much. Like, it's too much mental energy to run game and try and date multiple people at the same time as a baseline.
Yeah.
But when they're all in the same place and
Yeah.
you're just like, it just becomes, it's so stark seeing, like, oh, I created this situation that I hate being in. I have to get out of it.
That's happened to me before, where I like multiple people come to a show, and then I'm like, you're just like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to this person, blah blah blah, and then it's like, one of them's like, can I come over afterwards? And you're like, oh fuck, how am I going to, like, I guess run the interference like you were saying, man? It's such a fucking, it's a
lame. It's like a tightrope over a sea of piranhas while you're juggling chainsaws. And it's a disaster, and you're going to wind up with, at some point, like, blood's going to get spilled and you're going to lose a leg.
Yeah, I've never had 4 show up at the same show, though.
It's bad.
That's a nightmare, dude.
Yeah.
I've had, like, 2 or 3, and, like, I'll fancy myself as, like, I can make this work, and, like, everybody, like...
Of course, you always think you can.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, everybody. But I feel like they always know. Because they see you're like, talking to somebody else, and they're like, well, who the fuck is that person?
Right.
Know? Oh, man. 4 at one show.
It was bad.
I think that if we weren't comics, it'd be a lot easier. But, like, if you're a comic and then, like, you're following each other on Instagram and then you're like, hey, I have a show tonight. You just post it on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
They're always like, I want to come see you do a show. It's like, oh.
Yeah. That's basically... That's what happened, because it was, like, non-comics.
Yeah.
And it was just... Oh, man. Well, I regret it.
Well, Roast Battle is also, like... That's a fucking just a whole other thing too, because they see you just being like the meanest, writing the meanest jokes about someone, and they're like, "Oh God."
There was, Roast Battle's a dicey thing for a girl to see.
Oh yeah.
Seeing it as a show, I think is just it's good entertainment. It's fun, but if you're the one who's doing it and they see you and they don't like it, oh boy,
yeah.
Oh no.
It's like, this is what I do, babe. And you're just like, this chick's such a fucking cunt. It's like, oh my God.
I'm making fun of a dude's dead brother, and then the next day the girl's like, what are you doing? How could you say stuff like that? What would you say about me if we had a fight? And I was like, I don't know. This is not... Okay, this is not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. Do you find that girls or women are worried about dating you because they're worried about ending up being in your act?
I've never run into that. Have you?
A lot.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Because I have jokes about, like, and I tweet stuff about, like, exes, because my whole fucking shit is, like, dating is hard. And
right.
I have the game show, which you were a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's kind of my lane at this point. So I have a lot of jokes about, like, relationships or, like, people that I've gone on dates with or people that I've hooked up with. And... a lot of times when I like first start dating a girl, she'll see my stand up and be like, I'm a little worried that I'll end up in your act. And then I always say, don't do stupid shit and you won't.
Yep, there you go. Easy baseline.
Do you have any jokes in your act about like exes or anything?
I used to. There's one joke, I haven't done it in a long time. It was... There was this girl who I went out with. I don't remember some of the specifics of the joke, but I remember the date because the date is what led me to write the joke in the first place.
All right, let's talk about the date.
I went out with this girl. We went to the Broad downtown, the museum.
Yeah. And
they had... She was like 20 or 21, and I was like 26. And we went out to this, we went to the museum, hanging out, and at one point we were looking at this painting that is a painting of a slave ship.
Okay.
Right? From like the Civil War, pre-Civil War era slave ship, right?
It's a bad start.
Yeah, yes. You can probably guess where this is going. And she said something to the effect of like... And I want to preface this by saying she didn't know what the painting was of. Like, yeah. I did, because I read the placard. She was just, like, looking at the painting.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, what are these? Are these cute monkeys? What is this? And I was like,
no.
And then I was like, this is a slave ship. And she was like, oh, God. And we left, like, immediately, because she said it pretty fucking loud. And it's in a museum, so nobody's talking anyway. Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't want people looking at it. Like, we cannot be in this wing of the museum anymore. Dude. And she was like, she was very embarrassed about it. But I wrote a joke about, like, going out on a date with somebody who was accidentally racist on the date. And then there was something else about, it was the same girl, and she had said something else on the date. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I wrote this joke involving her that was like, it was like going on a date with my sister, but like a less fuckable version of my sister. And I'm from the South, so I know what it takes to fuck your sister. But it was all like, I haven't written a joke about any, or not written, I haven't told any jokes about dating in a long time, just because it's been so long. Yeah. The only references I have for it now would be like friends of mine dating.
Yeah.
And I have some jokes that are about long time exes that I still have like in the quiver that I will pull out every now and again if it's appropriate. I did a lot of material about long distance dating, just because that's such a... I think a lot more people understand that even as a concept, even if they're not actually doing it, because the things you have to do a long distance relationship are super ridiculous. Have you been in a long distance relationship?
Yeah, I was in one. Like, I started. This is what happened with me. Is I was in college and I graduated, and I was like hooking up with a girl that was still at college. She was like a sophomore, and I was graduating. And it started out as like friends with benefits, and I moved to New York to start doing comedy in New York.
Okay.
And she would come up and visit, and then right before I was moving, she was like, I really like you and I want to be dating. And I was like, yeah, I really like you too, and like, let's try that. And it was rough, dude. It was so hard because, you know, I was just like barely scraping by in New York. It was expensive as fuck. And it was tough. And like, she would come up and I would go down. She came up to New York a lot more than I went down, though, which I feel kind of bad about in hindsight. But and then she got an internship in New York that one summer, and that was great, and we were like dating and everything. But it's just mad hard, man.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of what ended my relation, because I was in a relationship before I moved out here, and for like, that was the one that was from Tinder. And I moved out here, and she grew up in New York, so she didn't know how to drive. She didn't know anybody in LA, and I had started hating living in New York. And so I made the decision to move out here, and she was like, well, I want to move out with you. And I was like, well, hold on a second. Like,
yep.
It wasn't that I like didn't want to be in a relationship with her anymore necessarily, but I was like, I don't want you to move to LA across the country for me.
Right.
Because that's like a load of pressure, you know. And you went through the same thing.
I went through that, yeah.
Yeah,
it's tough.
So I decided like we should probably break up before that, and she was like, well, what makes it possible? Why can't I just move to LA, but you can? And I was like, well, I have like, I'm going out here to continue doing comedy. I know how to drive. I already had like job leads and everything. And I was like, you don't know anybody out there. You don't know how to drive. Like, I don't know how you're going to get around. And then plus it's the whole pressure of like, what if we don't work out and then you're just in LA?
Right. We had, yeah.
How did that end up for you?
It's tough. I mean, I had my situation for the moving thing was definitely, it was different and a little weirder too.
Okay.
I'll add this caveat in. So we graduated college, and she and I, we decided that we were going to continue dating. And we were just like, I feel like at some point we had the conversation of something, like, because I was like, I've been in a long distance relationship before and it didn't work, but we can do it this time. This is the one. We can do this one for sure. And she was like, okay, great. And so she got a job in Dallas, and that's where I'm from, right? And so she got this job, and we went back to my parents' house, and she basically moved in there for a little bit. And I was gone a lot that summer. I was working at a summer camp for a little bit, and I worked at Bonnaroo for the entire run of the festival.
That's
so I was
fucking
gone
cool.
It was a fucking great time, dude. I had such fun. It was a great festival. And then I came back. I turned 22, and then I like waited 2 days and moved to Los Angeles. And the company she was working for had a branch here in Los Angeles, so the plan was that she was going to go through her training program and get to a point where she could transfer to the Los Angeles office. And we were like, this sounds great. Now, where the hiccup was she had moved in to living in her own place, and I was in a position where I was like living with roommates, but I was in a good spot, and I was like, I'm cool with this. I think we should go. We should keep separate whenever you move to Los Angeles, just for a little bit. So like, because I'd been in LA for about a year at that point, so it was like, this is a really hard city to get adjusted to. Like, it's a different kind of a city than a lot of other big cities.
Yeah.
As far as the way you interact with people and the layout and all that stuff. So it was like, it's better if you live on your own or like live with a roommate for a little while, at least like 6 months maybe, just to get your feet wet to figure out what your life in LA is going to be like. And then we can move in together after that if it's all still going smooth. Because then I had friends who'd done that, and they were like, "Yeah, this is what you should do. This worked for us. This is a good method." And I was like, "Cool, let's try that." And she said, "I will only move to Los Angeles if we move in together." Oof. And so I was like, "Well, if this is the only way you're going to do it, then okay, yeah, let's do that." And that put the pressure on me in a way that I could not healthily deal with at the time. I was not in a place where I knew, again, like things like how to stand up for my feelings and how to say I don't feel comfortable doing this. I just kind of folded and was the doormat, and then I acted out in ways after she moved in that like led to the demise of the relationship. And of course there's stuff that she did too in the process of like the relationship crumbling that made things worse. But it definitely like stemmed from me being unable to effectively communicate, "Hey, I think this is a really bad idea, and I still want you to move to Los Angeles, and I still want to be with you, but we have to like come to an actual agreement instead of me just kind of rolling over and saying, yeah, sure, if this is the only way you're going to do it."
Yeah.
Or we just break up and you just stay in Dallas and you can work in Dallas and you'll be fine. Because her whole dream was she wanted to go to law school at some point, and she was like, I can go to school in California, I can go to LA, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, her being stuck in LA thing, like she knew people. We both had a lot of people who we went to college with out here. And so that thing didn't worry me. But what did wind up worrying me the most was when we did break up, all of our friends from college, it seemed like she went to them, and I felt the position like, oh, I can't hang out with these people anymore if she's going to be there all the time.
Yeah.
Which ultimately was good because then it forced me to hang out with other comics and like develop those relationships.
Yeah.
When I moved in with my girlfriend, I was going through a bunch of old stuff. My current girlfriend, and I found a letter that she'd written me when we broke up, and we broke up. And she still lived with me for a little while. And this is like a letter she'd given me when we broke up. And it was like, I know this is the right move. I know you don't think this is going to be the right move, but this is going to be the right move for a multitude of reasons. Like, you will grow and blossom from this. And I was just like, I just want to be with you. I didn't want this. And then I'm reading the letter, and I'm sitting back almost, 4 years gone from there, from where I was at that point in my life. And I was like, oh, yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry that I had to be the one to like create all of this.
Yeah.
And put you in this position. I still don't feel I don't feel good about what I did, but it's like, all right, you were right.
Yeah.
You made the right decision to break up with me. You did the thing that I could not do.
Yeah. So after you guys broke up, did she stay in LA or did she go back to Dallas?
She stayed in LA. We lived together for a couple months after we broke up, which is I don't recommend to anybody. I don't understand how people can be friends with their exes. That's just another like sidebar.
Yeah.
Which could be its own tangent. I don't get it.
I dated a girl last year for about 6 months who was adamant that she needed to be friends with me. And like I've been like cool with certain exes of mine, but I've never been like, hey, we're buds, But this woman was adamant. She was like, and she made me feel like shit because I wasn't friends with my exes because she was friends with her exes. And I was like, yeah, I don't need to be friends with you though. Like, it doesn't need to happen. Like,
right.
And I think the only reason why I'm still friends with one of my exes, and like we're not even like that good of friends or anything, but we're cool, is because she lives fucking across the country.
Right.
Like it's hard to. Look, the thing is, I have such little time to spend with my own friends that I'm not going to make special time to be friends with an ex,
Right.
That would take a lot more effort to do that, where I would rather put that effort into like doing more comedy, hanging out with more comics, or like other projects that I'm working on, as opposed to like someone that I used to date, like, and it just kind of gets weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Like
it's loaded.
everything just feels kind of like heavy.
Yeah.
When you're hanging out with an ex and you're not dating anymore.
Yeah, because you don't know if there's feelings there, and if you bring up like, hey, I went on a date last night, then you don't know if they're going to be like, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I'm friends with anybody that I really dated out here, and I don't think I am.
I'm absolutely not. I burn those bridges, baby.
Really?
I try not to. Honestly. I don't try and actively like fuck things up to a point where we're not like. I've gotten in hot water with some girls who I dated. Like I had a girl who tried to take out a cease and desist on me, and do you know Jake Cannon?
I don't. Maybe if I saw him, I know.
He used to do a lot of stand up, and he does a lot more podcast related stuff now. But he had this podcast, and he and I were good friends, and I went on his podcast a couple times, and we talked about, whatever you talk about on a podcast, right? And he knew that I was dating this girl, and we broke up. And then they matched on a dating app, and he was like, hey, I know you dated her because she messaged me when she found out I was a comic, and we had hit it off, and she was like, hey, do you know Jay Light? And Jake lied to her and said that he didn't know me, even though we were like friends and worked together and also were like hanging out. And we talked about this story of her and him going out on a date, and then the date going so bad because he basically copped to that he knew me well. And then after that date, she hit me up and was like, hey, I miss you. And I was like, okay, let's hang out.
Yeah.
And then she told me about the date that she'd just been on. She's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to go out with like friends of yours if it's going to make you feel weird. And I was like, oh no, he told me that he was going to go out with you. It's fine. And then she got really mad. And then our date ended poorly. And then Jake was like, let's talk about all of this on my podcast. And then we did. And then she tried to take out a cease and desist on us. And she said she was going to sue us for defamation of character.
Wow.
Which she had no grounds to do because we were not libelous or slanderous in any way.
Yeah.
We just told the fucking truth, what happened. That was the only time that it was like hot water. Where like she like blocked me on everything. I have no way of finding her at all now. But that's the only time it's gone like horribly awry. Like I'm not friends with any of my exes by any means. I'm cool with a couple of them, especially the couple of comics who I've dated. We're cordial.
Yeah.
You know, like even I'm not gonna go like across the room to be like, oh my god, hi, oh, it's so good to see you. But like if we're next to each other in the hallway at a club or a mic or something, and we'll say, hey, how you doing? Or if they have a good set, I'll say they have a good set.
Yeah.
But I'm not like dying to go hang out with them.
Dude, I've dated a couple comics, and I don't know if I'm cool with like any of them.
Oh yeah. Well, dating comics is hard because we're all so fucking emotional, and we're trying to not be like, we're trying to hide all of the shit that goes on inside.
Yeah, I've tried to remain cool with them because it's like I know that we're gonna see each other again, and then like something will happen. Like I remember I went out with this one comic for like a month, right? And then we broke up. Like it just was not gonna work out. And then I saw her on Bumble a while later, and her profile was bad. Like she put bad pictures of herself. So I messaged her on Instagram, and I was like, dude, I saw you on Bumble. Like your profile is bad. Like you're way hotter than these pictures. Like you need to put up better pictures. Like if you want, like these are not good. And she was like, what are you fucking talking about? And I was like, you're way better looking than this. Like you need to represent yourself better. And then she blocked me on Instagram. And I was like, why are you blocking? Like, I'm just trying. I'm like, dude,
Trying to help.
I'm trying to help. I want you to get some good fucking man or whatever.
No, what you're doing is being a man telling a woman how to live her life, Joe.
So apparently she wrote jokes about that.
Oh, okay.
And she told them at this one mic, and another female comic that I know saw them, and she was like, oh, I really like those jokes. And then the girl was like, you know who they're about? They're about Joe Welkie. Have you ever had a girl, if you've dated a female comic, have you ever heard a joke about you in their set?
No, not
Dude,
about
it's not
me.
good.
Yeah.
It's not.
It seems bad.
It's weird.
I
It's
mean,
really weird to be like, oh, cause this happened to me several times.
I've had people do that where they tell me, oh, she just told a joke about you.
Yeah.
And then I get really curious and want to find out what the joke is. But that happened so quickly after we broke up that that's not even the thing anymore. But what I do have happening now instead, and I had my friends who do this quash it a little bit because I started feeling very uncomfortable about it happening, was I dated a comic, and then when we broke up, I unfollowed her on all social media.
Yeah.
And, you know, because it's the healthy thing to do, I think. And they all continue to follow her, but they only follow her so that way in our, like, friend group text chat, they send me clips from her, like, Instagram stories or her Instagram posts that are, like, bad or unfunny or, like, desperate seeming, like, shitty thirst traps and that kind of stuff. And they're just, like, roasting her in the group chat, and I don't respond to it,
yeah,
and because I'm just like, I don't want to be involved, but like fun times, guys. And then after a while, we were consistently doing that for like a year, like well into me dating my current girlfriend, and she saw the group chat because it was named official comics name fan page. That was the name of our group chat. Which I had named it that after they started sending me all of these messages and these clips all the time, because I was just like, this is funny. This is my contribution to this group because I don't follow her and I have no desire to. But then my girlfriend saw that and she's like, obviously uncomfortable because she knows that this is somebody who I used to date. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, we have to, this is, I felt weird about it too, but I wasn't, until she said something, I wasn't going to say something. So I was like, all right. We got to cool it. And they still do it every once in a while. But now, thank God, my one of my friends in that group chat also has an ex who posts insane shit on her social media. And so she will get thrown in there every once in a while, too. So it's all off of me a little bit.
I went out with this one female comic that I think it got fucked up somehow. And I was like, fuck. That's, like, I was not happy about it. Mm-hmm. And fucking Kazim Rahman will send, like, because I still think she's super hot or whatever.
Right.
He'll send me, like, I don't follow her on anything. I, like, very much try to avoid her. He would send me anytime she posted, like, something where she looked really hot and be like, damn, Joe, like, you fucked up or whatever. I'm like, will you fucking stop it?
Yeah.
But, dude, he fucking loved doing that.
I mean, there's something like comic to comic you can appreciate somebody doing that. But totally. Also just like the human being, you're like, oh,
dude,
man.
A couple times we'd be like at the Improv, and he'd be like, "What, Joe? Check this out." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, why? Why are you doing this?" It's fucking hilarious, though, man. But hearing jokes about you, oh man,
oh, it's gotta suck.
I don't wish that on you.
It's gotta. I hope it does not happen.
It's great when the joke bombs. I remember I did this one comic, and then we were on a show together, like a week or two afterwards, and she bombed, and like we were trying to like be cool, like we were cool, like it was like she broke up with me, but I understood why, so I was like, yeah, I get it. So we were like chill, and then I saw her like at the show, and she fucking ate it, and I tweeted like, nothing better than watching an ex bomb. And then she was like, you fucking hate me now? It's like, dude, you dumped me. Let me have this tweet, okay?
And it's an accurate tweet.
Yeah,
anytime I see an ex-comic, an ex of mine who's a comic, if they are on the same if they're on the same show as me, or if they like sign up for the open mic, I will watch their set.
Yeah.
And I will hope they bomb. And I hope they do the same for me, because that's courtesy right there.
Like, I want to be like, I'm not going to bomb now because I need to do well in front of this person. Be like, oh, yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's so childish.
Right. Because you know that they were hoping that you bomb, too.
Yeah, and they also,
of course.
In the long run, it's like, who gives a fuck?
Right. Nobody's that good of a person where it's like, yeah, I'm the fucking moral high ground here. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
All right. So, do you have a story of the worst date that you've ever been on?
Besides the one where she was accidentally racist in front of a bunch of people in a museum? Yes. Oh, God. Let me think. Because it had to have been, I mean, it's got to be like an LA story, because it's the time where I did the most, like, dating.
Yeah.
Shoot. I mean, there are times where, like...
This is always what I... like.
It's so hard to, like, think of a single story.
Yeah, this is... So I have a lot of women on the show because of, like, the nature and how I meet everybody to be guests.
Yeah.
A lot of guys don't want to come on the show that, like, are strangers because they're like, what the fuck's up with this guy? Like, so
right.
A lot of the men that I have on are comics that I know. And in my experience, I find that, like, a lot of the guys' terrible dates, quote-unquote terrible dates, aren't as interesting as women's terrible dates.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine because women probably have a whole lot worse to deal with than guys.
For sure. Like, a lot of the guys' bad first dates is like, oh, showed up and she didn't look like her picture or whatever. You know, like, and that's fairly common. Like, and, yeah, I don't know. But... a lot of, like, my bad dates that I've been on, it's just because they're just boring. It's like nothing crazy happened.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened to me.
Yeah.
The only, like, the things that come to mind are, like, stories about, you know, dates where I'm going out with somebody, and my go-to was, like, we're going to get a coffee and we'll go for a walk.
Yeah.
Because we can walk around the neighborhood, right? And so I would do that. And it's just the kind of thing where, like, I would like to have a good conversation on a first date to sort of get to know whoever I'm going out with. Mm. And if I feel like I'm the one who's doing a lot of the legwork and the heavy lifting, then that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Because I want you to be interested and keep things even.
Yeah.
Like, if I can't talk to you, then we're not going to be compatible, I don't think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. You got to have that banter, baby.
Right. Boring shit is bad.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, I can't think of... I haven't had, like, a hell nightmare date. At least a first date or anything like that. Yeah. Being accidentally racist in front of a bunch of people at a museum is weird. But that's probably the closest thing to it.
Yeah, that's so. A lot of times I have women ask me, like, why don't you have more guys on? That's a big reason why. Is, like, number one, a lot of guys don't want to because I don't know why. Like, I was on Bumble BFF for, like, a while at trying to get people on it, and guys, I'd be like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? It's like a good time, and they're like, no.
Well, because I feel like a lot of guys probably have the flip side version of of them being a shitty dude.
Well, I enjoy those. Those are great stories too. Like, I love stories where the person that's telling the story is like, I fucked this up.
Yeah.
Do you have any like that?
I definitely have those kinds of stories.
Let's do one of those then.
This is about somebody who I dated. And it's unfortunately it's not just one date, but it's like a series of things that I think that culminate in showing how bad I was at being actually, you know what? No, I do have one thing.
Hell yeah.
This is not when I was single and I wasn't able to communicate, like, I don't want to do anything besides, like, just hook up, I was bad. And I hurt people because of that. And I think that there was this one girl who was perfectly nice funny. Not a comic. She was doing. She was like an improviser,
Oof.
but brand new, right? Yes, and no more. So she was. She was super. She was nice and sweet, but we didn't have like a spark. But we were like, it was fun. We had a good time together, and at some point, I guess the best way to probably put it would be like I ghosted her, but not purposefully, like not knowingly, like. It wasn't like she was texting me and I wasn't responding. The conversation just kind of like...
It was a fizzle out.
It just fizzled out, right? Yeah. And then somewhere down the line, like I hit her up to hang out and to hook up. And we did, but then she basically afterwards like dressed me down and was like... You're clearly like trying to hook up and I actually like... I liked you and this is like... shitty what you did. And I was like, okay, well I was like, well how about we try and like make something work a little bit. Like I'm sorry that I treated you that way and I don't want to be that guy, so let's try and do something. And so then we started to talk again and she told me about an improv show she was doing. And so I was like, cool, I will go check this out. It was at Second City. And I got a text the day of the show that I was supposed to go see, like asking me if I could do a spot on another show that was like right after her show. And so what I was like, okay, so I have to see the show and then right afterwards I got to split.
Yeah.
So I go see her. I see her before the show starts. I'm like, hey, I'm excited to see your show. And then I see the show. And then the show goes long. So I'm like, fuck, I have to leave. I can't say goodbye to her. I have to leave. So as soon as the show was done, I left.
Yeah.
And I did not tell her that was what was going to happen. So in her mind, she sees the dude who she's like, had this opened her heart to, been vulnerable to, said, I don't like the way you treated me, this is shitty, I liked you, and gotten the feedback of, oh, you're right, I liked you, I would like to try and make this work, I'm gonna go see your improv show. Sees him there, she tries her best, she's funny, and then she comes out to be like, cool, let's hang out. And he's gone and has not texted her or said anything about where he is. And so I was like, in that moment, I knew I was like, I'm being really shitty right now.
Yeah.
And then later I texted her and I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I had to leave the show. Great work. And then she texted me a response to that. But then after that, it was like, we fizzled out. Yeah. But in that moment, like I was like, I don't care enough to like miss a show for this person. I gotta she
probably got off stage. She was like, man, how bad was my improv?
Exactly, right? She's like, oh, am I that unfunny that, like, he has to just fucking split? Like, he's done. Can't even face me. It wasn't that, I'm sorry.
All right, I'm going to ask you the last two questions that I ask everybody. We're going to wrap things up really quick. First question is, who is a celebrity that you think would be in your league if they weren't a celebrity?
Somebody I think would be in my league.
This is not like who's your celebrity crush,
right?
This is like if they weren't a celebrity, you could see like
going out with.
They'd be into me, and I'd be into them.
I feel like, I'm gonna go with. Oh, geez. This is also very difficult. Why are these questions so hard? Are these questions always easy for women and difficult for men?
No, they're difficult for everybody. Okay. Especially this one, because people don't really think about it like that. People think of like, oh, I think this guy's like, this is my celebrity crush. But it's not like, who do you think you could get with?
Right.
Like a lot of people don't think about that.
Here's the one that comes to mind is like, and this is I think this is it's a very silly answer because of my logic behind it. So, not a celebrity crush, but somebody who I think I could reasonably like make a pass at and pull is Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay.
Because
I think that another person said Jennifer.
Jennifer Lawrence she's very pretty.
Yeah.
But I have dated women who are like at that level. I would feel comfortable talking to her. Like I could feel comfortable making at least like trying to break the ice. And this is how. So you watch The Office, I would assume.
Yeah.
You're an American.
Yeah.
So remember Michael Scott at one point, he says something like his celebrity crush or something in that vein is like Ava Longoria. And good news, me and Ava Longoria have the same birthday, so icebreaker.
Nice.
Me and Jennifer Lawrence have the exact same birthday.
Fuck yeah.
August 15th, 1990. So I know what that's not gonna be the first, that's not what I open with because I'm not a fucking doofus like Michael Scott. But it's gonna come up at some point.
There you go. That's an in.
That's an in.
All right. Jennifer Lawrence, that's a good one.
Jennifer Lawrence.
That's a good one. I could see that one. Mm-hmm. Some people will be like, oh, yeah, this person. I'm like, okay.
I know my limits.
That's why I need to like, I kept asking it, being like, who's a celebrity? And then I think people understood it as like, who's a celebrity? Who's your celebrity crush? But it's not that.
Right.
Like, it's like, who do you think you could get?
Yes.
And they'd be interested in you. So that's, you have a good logic behind it. You have good solid, and I appreciate that. And last question before we wrap things up. What's a piece of advice that you'd give everybody listening about dating?
Be upfront.
There you go.
Especially if you're on apps. Be upfront about what you're looking for. And also try and take the conversation off the dating app as soon as possible in order for you to be upfront about that.
Yeah.
Because messaging what you're looking for in a dating app seems to be weird. But if you strike it off and you hit it off with somebody enough to where you're like, let's take this conversation off the dating app. Let's exchange numbers. Also, just a heads up for you, like, let's go out and I want to let you know I'm not looking for a relationship, but I would like to like go out with you and hang out with you and like get to know you more.
Yeah.
I think it seems so simple. It is very difficult to get to that point, but if you can just work yourself up to the confidence of that, it will change the way you look at dating.
Hell yeah. Jay, last minute plugs. You got anything that you want to plug one more time with the album?
Hit me with the
anything?
album. Good Guy
Fuck
with
it.
a Gun. Available everywhere August 14th. It's the day before my birthday and Jennifer Lawrence's birthday. So buy us a collective. If anyone knows Jennifer Lawrence, send her my album on her birthday as her birthday gift. And that's how we break the ice. And then I'm sorry, my current girlfriend, I will be leaving you for Jennifer Lawrence.
I will be leaving you for a life of luxury with a celebrity.
Yes.
Super, super rich celebrity. All right, Jay, thanks a lot for doing the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
There you have it, everybody. That was my chat with Jay. I hope you all enjoyed it. Be sure to check out the album one more time. That is Good Guy with a Gun, Jay Light. Just check it out. Check out his podcast and all that good shit. Thanks for listening. Please, again, if you could like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about the show. Give it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. All that good shit. You can go to datingisHardComedy.com to find out more information. You can follow the Instagram at datingisHardComedy and follow me on Instagram at Welkie for all the updates about this show. Yeah, thanks again for listening. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. And until next time, later.